Theatrephonic presents Picturing the Past, written by Barbara Jennings.
Welcome to the audio tour of the first major exhibition of Hugo Westfield's paintings in several decades. Westfield's Suffolk seascapes and pastoral scenes were much admired in the interwar period. Although his critical reputation later declined, his pictures continue to be widely reproduced and popular with the public, and his work is ripe for reappraisal. You can pause the audio tour at any time, so please look round the exhibition at your own pace. For more detail on specific paintings or topics, press the number key indicated.
Do we really need these audio guides, Ruth? We're supposed to be looking at the exhibition together, not in two separate headphone bubbles.
We can take the headsets off and talk whenever we want. We'll get more information this way.
Only what's already on the wall panels, probably.
Maybe, but as you're too vain to wear your glasses, Amy, you can't rely on reading the wall panels.
Excuse me? I can read the wall panels perfectly well. Or I could if art galleries weren't in perpetual twilight. Why this exhibition, anyway? It's not your normal taste. Isn't Westfield rather twee? Calendars and chocolate boxes and so on.
Monet's water lilies are on everything, from an umbrella to a mouse mat. Doesn't make him less of a genius.
Are you saying Westfield was another Monet?
No. Just that his paintings being used commercially after his death doesn't make him less talented. And I've always had a soft spot for Westfield. When I was a child, we had our summer holidays on the Suffolk coast, very close to Casely, where he lived. And on the Sunday, in the middle of our fortnight, we'd have lunch at the George in Casely. In the restaurant, there was a Westfield painting of a row of fishermen's cottages at sunrise. I always asked if we could sit where we could see it while we ate. I think I was fascinated by the idea that you could capture something so fleeting as a sunrise in paint.
Strangely enough, I have a food-related childhood memory of Westfield as well. You know that really famous painting of his, the family outside their humble cottage? It was on my Aunt Betty's biscuit tin. Every time I see it, I get a craving for custard creams.
Oh, that's brought me down to earth. Shall we make a start?
Lead on. I'm open-minded and willing to be converted to the Hugo Westfield fandom.
Hugo Westfield was born in London on the 4th of August 1887 and had a comfortable and privileged upbringing. After Oxford, he spent 6 months touring European art galleries and exhibitions before entering the civil service, in which his father held a senior position. Surprisingly little documentary evidence of Westfield's life remains, leading some to suggest that letters and diaries may have been destroyed either by him or later by his family. A shy and increasingly reclusive man, he avoided interviews, saying that his beliefs and intentions were contained in his work. After his death, his family declined to cooperate with potential biographers, so art historians must rely on the memoir written by his widow, Imogen. This has been out of print for many years, but a new edition has been prepared for this exhibition and is on sale in the gallery shop. For more biographical details, please press 1.
This can't be right. We must have gone through the wrong door.
There was only one door.
Well, yeah, but look at them, Ruthie. These are the kind of paintings you usually invite me to see. Like a brightly coloured geometry lesson, all lines and angles and incomprehensible detail. I mean, what's that, for instance?
Machinery of some sort, and figures. Probably operating the machinery. But trees in the background.
Open-air industrial production. Although, I rather like it. It's somehow joyous in a peculiar way.
Let's try the audio guide.
Visitors familiar with Westfield's pictures may be surprised by this first room. The early work shown here, painted between 1908 and 1914, is vastly different from his mature style of 1919 onwards, which you will see in the other rooms. The influence of the Fauve's explosion of colour and Cubist conceptions of form are apparent, but none of the Impressionist's approach to light and colour which are so much part of his later work. For more details on Westfield's influences, please press 3.
What are Fauves when they're at home? No, on second thoughts, tell me later. Maybe.
The display cases in the centre of the room contain some of Westfield's sketchbooks from his European travels and copies of the New Century Movement magazine for which he provided illustrations. New Century was a short-lived and youthfully enthusiastic pre-war movement advocating social progress through education, greater mechanization of labour, and the encouragement of creativity.
You know what? I like this man. He applied his work to his beliefs. His illustrations make more sense than his paintings. This glass needs cleaning, though. Definite couple of nose prints there.
Perhaps someone forgot their glasses.
Oh, very funny. What did he do during the war? If this room goes up to 1914 and the next one starts in 1919, well, he wasn't painting.
I expect he joined up. He'd have been, 27? Try the Audioguide.
Westfield was unfit for military service in the First World War as a result of rheumatic fever in childhood, and he remained in his civil service post. Imogen describes how he volunteered at a hospital caring for wounded soldiers, overcoming his natural shyness to offer sympathy and friendship to young men whose families lived too far away to visit or could not afford the journey. Early in 1919, during the third wave of what came to be known as the Spanish flu, Westfield's mother died, and he himself came close to death.
Wow, 4 years of war and then a pandemic. And ordinary life would have gone on somehow, as it always does.
You're getting philosophical again, Ruthie. Come and interpret another picture for me.
Hugo! I thought it was you tucked away in the corner. No, don't get up. May I join you?
Please be my guest. How are you, Imogen?
Fit as a proverbial fiddle as always. And you? You look a bit low, Hugo. Anything wrong?
Oh, the army's turned me down. Unfit for the ranks, apparently.
Why? Just a pot of tea, please.
Heart deemed not up to the required standard. I had rheumatic fever as a child and it did permanent damage.
That's a blow. But there are other ways to serve the country. You're a civil servant. You lot keep the country running.
Oh, at my lowly level, it doesn't feel like that. The civil service wasn't my choice and I'm not really cut out for it.
Why did you go into it then?
Oh, my father insisted. His only son had to follow his career path. Trouble is, his only son doesn't have his abilities or his ambition. And, to cap it all, he wants to be an artist. Dubious bohemian types, artists, Hugo. What have they ever done for the country? Fortunately, he never found out I'd been taking art lessons while I was at Oxford. It was easy for the girls. All he expected of them was good manners and invisibility. I could have managed that.
I thought your father let you go to Europe and study art when you came down from Oxford.
Yes, he allowed me 6 months of visiting galleries. Get it out of your system, boy. Then grow up and get on with real life. I'm sorry, Imogen. I seem to be steeped in self-pity today.
Here's my tea. Thank you. No, separate bills, please. Are you still painting?
Yes. Now I'm in lodgings rather than at home. It's a lot easier. I've even managed to sell a few. And I'm doing pretty well at the illustrations for the NCM magazine. I'm involved in the printing as well and general backroom stuff.
NCM?
New Century Movement. Not heard of it? Oh, it's splendid, Imogen. It's the way forward. NCM advocates a radical change in society, founded on improving education to promote rational thinking and increasing mechanisation of labour to give people time to develop their creativity. Give everyone education and opportunities to fulfil themselves, and you'll end up with a fairer, happier, more prosperous nation. That's what I want my art to contribute to. I want to be a part, however small, of making society better. Sounds dreadfully pretentious, doesn't it?
No, it sounds wonderful, but rather idealistic.
Well, you have to have ideals, goals to work towards. The war might even help, though I'm no believer in violent revolution. But it could be the catalyst that's needed. I'll send you some back copies of the magazine. We have contributions from some of the finest minds around, philosophers, writers. Good grief, listen to me. I sound as if I'm on a soapbox. I'm sorry, Imogen. Tell me about you. Are you going to do some kind of war work?
Oh, no doubt I'll be knitting socks and organising fundraising concerts, or whatever one is expected to do. But I'll be doing it in Lincolnshire.
Why Lincolnshire?
My brother-in-law's joined up, and my sister finds herself incapable of managing a home and children without support. Although she has more servants than seems necessary to me. Violet's a darling and exquisite to look at, but utterly helpless. I shall keep the children in order and the household budget under control, and make sure the staff don't take advantage of Violet's good nature.
You're a wonder, Imogen. I need someone like you to organise my life. I'm always in a muddle. Look, everyone says this war will be over in a few months. Let's keep in touch and meet for dinner once you're back in London. Celebrate the end of the war and a new start. What do you say?
Yes, I'd like that, Hugo.
Sunday, 13th of August, 1916. Dear Imogen, I'm a terrible correspondent, I know. Your last letter was over a month ago. In my defence, a lot has been going on. I finally packed in my civil service job. Terrible row with father, as you can imagine. He didn't quite strike my name from the front of the family Bible, but it got close. Anyway, as you can see from the address, I've moved out of London. I've got a job as an orderly in a hospital dealing with wounded soldiers. I expect you all think that pretty menial work, but it's a way to be of some use. The doctor who interviewed me said a lot of these chaps don't have families living close enough to visit, so part of my job is to provide a sympathetic listening ear. I imagine I'll be hearing some remarkable stories of courage under fire and comradeship. I still feel guilty because I'm not out there fighting myself. Of course, they'll be frustrated, wanting to get back to their units, and it might help to talk. I arrived yesterday and have pleasant lodgings a few minutes' walk from the hospital. I start in the morning. I hope your jumble sale was a success. If nothing else, it will have been organised with military precision. Yours, Hugo. P.S. My working hours are quite long, so I might not be able to write often. But you are always in my thoughts. Wednesday, 12th of March, 1919. Dearest Imogen, you were an absolute brick to come to Mother's funeral last month and to help out afterwards. The poor darling went so quickly, none of us had really taken it in, and I myself had barely recovered, as you saw. As if the war had not taken enough lives without this flu as well. My sister Caroline has moved in to keep house for Father, along with her boys. I think he's quite pleased to have the grandchildren around, and it gives them someone in place of their own father. He and I are on much better terms, and he seems reconciled with the idea of having an artist as a son. So here I am, renting a small cottage on the Suffolk coast, with a clear conscience, getting plenty of restorative sea air, and starting to paint again. I think I can make a living from my brush, if I'm thrifty. And there are things I want to say that I can only do through art. Would you like to come and stay? There's a tiny spare room, or a nice guest house in the village if you think that's more respectable. I'm in a fearful muddle, having just moved in, but I'll try to get straight before you come. Imogen, I may not have the courage to say this face to face, but would you consider marrying me? You're such a splendid, strong person. I feel anything would be possible with you around, and we've always got on well. If you don't like the idea, just let me know and I won't mention it again. But please, come and visit anyway. Fondest regards, Hugo. That's a grand tour done in about 2 minutes. I'm glad you opted for Mrs. Maynard's guest house, Imogen. The spare room is really minuscule. Well, I suppose the whole cottage is rather pokey.
It's not pokey, it's compact, and it has all we need, for now. We can look at something large in the village later on.
Yes, and we can smarten this place up a bit in the meantime once you move in. Once we're married. I'm so glad you said yes, Imogen.
I'm glad you asked me. Now, you wanted to show me your work. Where's your studio?
Studio? Sounds grand. I'm using the lean-to at the back. It gets good morning light. Through here. Mind the step.
Well, it certainly looks like an artist studio, and I think... Hugo, that's lovely. Are they fishermen's cottages?
Oh, yes. You'll see the originals when we go for a walk along the shore. I fell into conversation with Mr. Thurlow, who owns the George in the High Street. Well, his wife owns it because... but that's beside the point. Apparently, Mr. Thurlow's always promised himself that if he ever met an artist, he'd ask him or her to paint a picture of those cottages. It's where he grew up. He described what he had in mind, and I didn't like to say that it wasn't my style of art. So I said I'd do it, and actually I rather enjoyed it. I hope Mr. T likes it.
Of course he'll like it. It's perfect. The colours of the sunrise behind the cottages. I didn't know you could paint like this.
I spent a lot of time copying impressionist pictures when I was at Oxford, instead of studying, I'm afraid. And then I moved on to copying more modern approaches. Copying is crucial when you're learning, but then you have to find your own voice. I don't want to spend my career producing a pale imitation of what's gone before.
Quite so. How much are you charging Mr. Furlow for the picture?
Nothing. I'm just doing it as a favour, to be agreeable, especially as I'm new to the village.
Yes, that's a nice gesture.
But never mind that. I want to show you what I'm really working on. You see, New Century movement pretty much fizzled out early on in the war, so I need to think again about how my art could be of any use. Here, in this old suitcase. Mostly charcoal drawings, but I've already worked a few up onto canvas. Imogen?
Dear God. Hugo, what are these?
Portraits of wounded soldiers I met when I worked at the hospital, and some of the scenes they described to me. I didn't put any of that in my letters. It took me a while to come to terms with. I am sorry, Imogen. I've got so used to seeing them that I forgot how upsetting they are. Oh, I should have prepared you.
But why are you doing this? Why now? The war is over.
Yes, but we have to remember what happened so we don't make the same stupid mistakes again. A lot of the chaps, their families didn't want to know the truth of what it was like. Just hear tales of valour and singing patriotic songs in the trenches. I can use my pictures to show people the hell men went through and are still living with. I'm not the only artist doing that, of course, but I can do my bit. Imogen? You're very quiet.
Hugo, I wouldn't normally presume to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do, or an artist what he should or shouldn't paint. But we're going to be married, and we'll need to live on your art. So what I think, my dear, is that you're taking the wrong course for the noblest of reasons. People don't want to be faced with the dreadful sufferings their sons and brothers and fathers went through. They want to be reminded of what they suffered for, of England, the countryside, the seashore, ordinary people going about their lives, tranquil mornings. What people want now is what Mr. Thurlow wants, Hugo. And bluntly, that's what they'll pay for.
But aren't you just reducing art to a commercial transaction?
If you're painting for a living, it is a commercial transaction. But it's also using your talents, your considerable talents, to increase human happiness. Isn't that worthwhile?
I suppose so. I need to think all this through, Imogen.
I think Mr. Furlow will be delighted with his picture. Suppose you donate another to Mrs. Maynard to hang in her guest house dining room. She tells me she gets quite a few summer visitors, and of course people stay at the George as well. So your work could be advertised in 2 places tourists are most likely to stay. Now I gather Mrs. Mainard's sister runs a gift shop in the High Street. Probably not big enough for this size canvas, but if you could produce a much smaller ones, views of the harbour and the nearby countryside, people could buy them as mementos of their holiday. I'm sure they would be popular. Then the larger scale works would go to an art dealer. We must investigate the possibilities. Norwich is probably the nearest suitable place. I believe that Bennett Taylor Gallery has a good reputation.
Imogen, slow down. You take my breath away.
I'm sorry, Hugo, but we need to plan ahead. And you did say that my organising skills would be welcomed.
And so they are, dearest. You just have to give me time to catch up with you. Look, let's start by giving Mr. Thurlow his picture. I've booked us a table for dinner at the George. We can do it then, see how he reacts and talk it over some more. And tomorrow we'll go to Beccles and buy you an engagement ring. Won't be very flashy, I'm afraid.
I wouldn't want a flashy ring, Hugo. You're already giving me what I want. A worthwhile purpose in life. You'll be amazed at what we can achieve together, my dear.
Bong. Bong.
Would you like to get to know more about the people behind Theatrephonic, the writers, the actors and directors? Well, now you can. Our Patreon members have the opportunity to ask questions which our creatives will then answer, if I can get hold of them. Find out everything you want to know about the people behind the characters. Visit patreon.com/Theatrephonic for more information. That's patreon.com/Theatrephonic. On with the play.
Bong. Bong.
Having moved to Suffolk to convalesce from a life-threatening bout of influenza, Westfield found it an ideal place to begin his career as a full-time artist, and he lived in Casely until his death. He and Imogen married in October 1919. For over 25 years he painted the village, the sea and shoreline, and the nearby countryside and farmland. Local residents described him as a quiet, courteous, unassuming man, and the presence of an increasingly well-known artist in the village was a source of pride. People occupy the landscape and shore in Westfield's paintings, but, with one notable exception, they are secondary to the natural world. Where an individual's features are discernible, Westfield often portrayed Imogen, their daughters Sylvia and Pamela, and his art dealer and friend Clive Bennett Taylor. According to one art historian, over half of Westfield's paintings show a scene at or near sunrise or sunset. These transitional times of day are ideally suited to his characteristic use of layers of translucent colour. For more detail on his techniques, please press 6.
I'm tempted to press 6 for more of your silken voice, but I foresee information overload. Ruth? What are you staring at?
It's the fishermen's cottages from the George, and it's just as I remember it.
Oh, bless. You've gone all dewy-eyed with nostalgia. I can almost smell the roast beef. You keep gazing and I'll play with the Audioguide.
In the second and third rooms of the exhibition, paintings are displayed in roughly chronological order from 1919 to 1947. The earliest example, Fishermen's Cottages at Sunrise, was a gift from Westfield to the proprietor of the George Inn in Casely and hung in the restaurant until the late 1990s. On the right-hand wall, you will see a representative sample of the very small watercolours Westfield painted for sale in the village gift shop to summer visitors. It was one of these pictures, displayed at the extreme left of the top row, which first drew wider attention to Westfield when it was purchased by the sister of the Sunday Times art critic.
This is more like it. Lots of sea and sky and happy haymakers. Oh, Ruth! There it is! Aunt Betty's biscuit tin! I don't suppose you're carrying an emergency custard cream, are you? Wow, it's huge.
I wouldn't say huge, but it is a lot bigger than the others. More impressive in real life, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. I thought it was just a sentimental picture of happy country folk. But the way he gets those colours to shine. And the detail on those flowers and the faces. What's that on the ground? Under the bench?
Hey, mate, don't get so close. We're alarming the attendant. The purple hair doesn't help.
I heard that. Can't you be an art lover with purple hair? It's okay. I've given the attendant my most disarming smile and he's sitting down again. Actually, I'm changing the hair to green next week before I start canvassing for the Green Party candidate in the local council election.
Oh, you don't do anything by half, do you? And it's a key on the ground.
Oh. Why a key?
Well, the picture's called Seek No Further, so I suppose it's the key to something. Press button 8.
The second room is dominated by what is probably the best known of Westfield's pictures, Seek No Further. Painted in 1926, it hung in the artist's studio for the rest of his life and was purchased by the Tate Gallery after his death. Westfield portrays himself, Imogen, and their 2 daughters as a farm worker and his family on a summer's evening. The man sits on a bench, under which a key lies on the ground. There is a pipe in his left hand, and his right curves protectively around the little girl who sits beside him. A second, younger child sits at, or nearly on, his feet. Poppies lie on the ground, and she is intent on threading the stem of one of them into her father's boot, to join 2 others already poking over the top of the boot in vivid, almost wound-like, red splashes against the drab colours of his working clothes. A woman stands in the open doorway, head slightly to one side, smiling benevolently as she wipes her hands on her apron. Although the most famous of Westfield's paintings, it is uncharacteristic, not just in size, but in that he very rarely painted portraits as such, people always being subsidiary to the landscape. The title is also unusually poetic. Westfield often left the choice of title to Imogen or Clive Bennett-Taylor, and all 3 tended to the prosaic, such as Shoreline at Evening or Barleyfield in July. According to Imogen Westfield's memoir, this painting shows that family was the emotional core of her husband's life, that he need seek no further for happiness, having found the key, and for that reason he would never part with it, despite the urgings of his art dealer. Surprisingly, she does not draw attention to the poppies, which surely symbolise the friends Westfield lost in the Great War.
I've brought you something to eat.
Oh, thanks. Can you put it over there, please, away from the paints?
I'll need to clear some space. I don't see why you can't eat with us, Hugo. The girls are disappointed every time you miss a meal. They think you prefer being here in the studio than being with them.
I'm simply making the most of the long evenings. And if I weren't working, there wouldn't be food to put on the table, would there?
Surely half an hour wouldn't make so much difference. And why don't you let the girls sit for you? And me, for that matter, if you're using our faces. Why work from photographs?
You have more than enough to do already. Sylvia would have good intentions but get bored, and Pamela's incapable of sitting still for 2 minutes and even less capable of keeping quiet.
She's only 2.5, Hugo.
I know, it's not a criticism, just an explanation of why photographs are easier.
Suppose you know best. Let me have a proper look at what you're doing. You've been so secretive about it all along. I don't understand why it has to be so large. It is very good, though, Hugo. You shouldn't have given up doing portraits. There's always demand. We should talk about that. It could be quite lucrative. And what should we call this one? Farm worker at evening?
Seek no further.
Seek no further? What's that supposed to mean? For goodness sake, I don't... Oh, my dear, I see. Family, home, contentment. Seek no further. Oh, Hugo, that is beautiful, and here I am, nagging away at you. I'm sorry, darling.
Nothing to be sorry for.
I'll leave you in peace. Don't work too late.
I won't. Thanks for supper.
You wouldn't know these late ones were painted in wartime, would you? So tranquil. Maybe living through one war helped him cope with another. Or maybe nature was a refuge, so he didn't have to face what was going on.
Look at the very last one. Just shapes under snowdrifts.
January 1947. Wasn't that a really dreadful winter?
Certainly looks like it. It makes it beautiful, though.
So, are you converted?
Absolutely. Sign me up for the fan club. What was she like, do you think?
Who?
Imogen Westfield.
Standard, devoted and self-effacing artist's wife, probably. Simultaneously bringing up the children, acting as model, liaising with art dealers and shielding Hugo from intrusive tourists. And then writing his biography, of course.
Odd that so little else survives. Letters, diaries, and so on. Do you think she got rid of them so that only her version came down to posterity?
Well, nothing like a good conspiracy theory. If he was such a private person, she may have wanted him to keep that privacy after death. And biographers are notoriously nosy creatures. Why should they chew over every detail?
True, but it gives you a lot of power, doesn't it? Being the one who tells the story.
Hugo Westfield tells the story, Amy, in the paintings themselves.
Sylvia, where's the string?
On the windowsill, Mother. Bonfire's going well. Mother, you are quite sure about this, aren't you? Or getting rid of so much paperwork, I mean.
Of course I'm sure. I've sorted it all out.
You don't think you might regret not having it later on?
I know what I'm doing, darling. I've kept everything important, and we must be careful. I've already had some impertinent journalists asking prying questions and a letter from someone wanting to write a biography of your father.
Isn't that quite flattering?
Not if he only wants to nose around in hope of finding something discreditable. Not that there is anything discreditable to find out. But I won't see your father's life picked apart. They can look at his paintings. It's all there. And I shall write my own account of his life. Who knew him better?
No one, Mother, of course. You're doing a grand job of the packing up. When is Mr. Bennett-Taylor coming for the pictures?
Wednesday.
And what will you do with Seek No Further?
Wrap it somehow, I suppose. It's too large for these packing cases.
You're not selling that as well?
Of course I am. Clive Bennett-Taylor's had his eye on it for 20 years. He thinks the Tate may want it. I shall drive a hard bargain. Helps with his commission.
But it's us. Us as a family. With you standing there as our guardian angel. That's what Daddy always called you. And it meant so much to him.
I know, darling. But art has a public as well as a private role. Your father's work should be on show. And frankly, I need the money. Hugo was enormously talented, but he worked slowly, and his paintings didn't fetch particularly high prices. I wish I could have persuaded him to do more portraits, but he never wanted to. Anyway, that's all in the past. Help me get this down. We'll see how best to pack it.
Mother, this wall isn't solid. There's a sort of... Is it a cupboard? But without a proper handle.
You're right. I don't remember that being there. But then it has been covered for 20 years.
Do you think there's anything in there?
Hardly.
Perhaps we should look.
How do you suggest we do that without a latch or handle?
We can prise it open. Wait, where's my handbag? Here, use my penknife.
Heavens, Sylvia, do you generally carry a knife?
You make me sound like some sort of hoodlum, Mother. It's just a Woolworths penknife. Very useful. Shall I do it?
No, I can manage.
It's coming loose. Yes, you've opened it. Is there anything in there?
A rather battered cheap suitcase and a lot of dust. Help me get out the case.
Is it locked?
No, the catches are just stiff. Your trusty penknife will do it. There.
Mother, what is it?
See for yourself.
Heaps of drawings. Charcoal, mostly. Oh, 1 or 2 canvases right at the bottom. Let me take them over to the window.
Sylvia, perhaps you should leave them to me.
But they're Daddy's work, aren't they? Why hide them away? Oh. This is grotesque. When did he draw these?
During and immediately after the war. He had been volunteering, I should say, in a hospital looking after wounded soldiers. It helped him to put some of the things he saw and heard about onto paper. And he had the idea that portraying the suffering of this war would prevent another, overstating the power of art, in my opinion. But he came to realise that his talent was showing what people valued, what he had suffered for. I thought he had burned them. He told me he had.
But he didn't burn them, so they must have mattered to him. He kept them hidden behind... Seek no further. With the key on the ground. As if he were saying, look here, this is me, and this is what I have to say.
Don't be so fanciful, Sylvia. That's Pamela's department. Your father simply gathered them together to burn them and forgot. Nothing more to it. I'll deal with them now. Put everything back in the suitcase. Try not to look.
You're going to burn them?
Certainly.
But shouldn't Mr. Bennett-Taylor see them?
No, he shouldn't, and neither should anyone else. People might misunderstand, misinterpret, and it would detract from his reputation, which is my responsibility now. Give me the case. You do understand, don't you, Sylvia?
Of course, Mother. You're in charge.
Hugo Westfield died, aged 59, on the 30th of March 1947, towards the end of one of the worst English winters on record. After his death, Imogen oversaw the sale of the paintings remaining in his studio, including the cherished Seek No Further. At the end of 1947, she published the memoir of her husband, which has been reprinted for this exhibition and which is the basis for all our knowledge of Westfield's life and character. Early in 1948, she left Casely and made a new home in Surrey, closer to her younger daughter Pamela. She died in 1971. We hope you have enjoyed this survey of Hugo Westfield's work. The exhibition catalogue, Imogen Westfield's book, and a range of exhibition-related material are available in the gallery shop. We look forward to welcoming you to future shows. Goodbye.
And goodbye to you. Oh, I think I'm in love with the Audioguide. He sounds just like a British Lee Arden. Do you think he's on sale in the shop?
I doubt it. But you might get a nice tin for your custard creams.
Oh. On the subject of sugar rushes, didn't someone promise me a coffee and a donut after the exhibition?
We'll head straight for the cafe after the shop. If you desire coffee and donuts, seek no further.
You have been listening to Picturing the Past, written by Barbara Jennings, directed by Emmeline Braefield, with Jackson Pentland as the audio guide, Emmeline Braefield as Amy, Chloe Wade as Ruth and Sylvia Westfield, Jasmine Raymond as Imogen Westfield, and Gareth Turkington as Hugo Westfield. Produced by Cat on a Piano Productions. For a full list of the music included in the play, please see our show notes. The Theatrephonic theme tune was composed by Jackson Pentland, performed by Jackson Pentland, Mollie Fyfe-Taylor, and Emmeline Braefield. For more information about the Theatrephonic podcast, go to catonapiano.uk/Theatrephonic. Tweet or Instagram us @Theatrephonic, or visit our Facebook page. If you enjoy Theatrephonic and would like to get more content, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Theatrephonic. Please don't forget to rate and review. Thank you for listening.